Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, The Way of a Pilgrim. My name is Taylor Jackson, and thank you for joining me. So I know a few of you watched not my video, but Aaron's video on the Countryside Corner, and there was a lot of responses, a lot of positive feedback, so I wanted to thank you all for that. And a bunch of you even subscribed to my channel with nothing on it, which was crazy to me to think someone would do. But thank you for the people that did that. For anyone that shared out or reached out because of my content, I'm really appreciative of that. So I just wanted to say thank you before we got started. A lot of interesting topics came up in the last video in the comment section. I did try to read through everything to the best of my ability. I even tried to respond to some people. Some people just, they had some interesting things to say about me. We'll put it that way. So for one, everyone, of course, saw my tattoos and had not everyone, but some people had very negative responses to the tattoo. So for those people, for today, I've chosen to wear an outfit that is covering my neck tattoo. I can't really cover my hand tattoos without wearing gloves, and that would just be awkward. So I'm not going to do that. And I probably won't cover them for every video, I'm sorry to say. But for this one, I felt like I could do that. Maybe that would help you watch my first video and then make your judgment on me. Other things that came up were obviously questions about my past, about the military, and some other things. And I will, in the next video, go into the history of my work with the US government and the military, why I left, why I didn't have anything that I wanted to say in a Ren's video, and why I kind of just didn't want to talk about it, but enough people made comments about it, especially negative ones, that I want to clarify because I do not like to be attacked like that. And I feel justified in responding to those attacks. So, without further ado, I would like to get into what I'm calling my testimony or my journey to Christ, and I would like to share that with you all today. I apologize if I'm a little awkward or a little shy. I'm a very shy person to begin with, and recording myself and making these videos is just so new for me and very uncomfortable for me, but I'm doing my best. So thank you for sticking with me and thank you for watching. Okay, as for the people that commented about my tattoos, if I'm a Satanist or a devil worshiper, I am not presently one of those things, and I will get more into it. As for the people that had more harsh things to say, my response would be, I guess a quote from John, the book of John. Let he who is among you without sin cast the first stone, right? I don't believe it's my job to be out here to judge anyone. I believe I know what is right and what is wrong now, and I believe everyone deep down knows that, but we all make mistakes, and it's really, in my belief, not our job to judge each other. So, if you felt some hate or some anger because of what you saw or what you heard about me, I'm sorry that those emotions erupted in you, and I prayed for you all. Earnestly, I did. I felt bad that, my image alone could frustrate and anger so many people, and I didn't realize that. So, we'll get more into tattoos at some point, but I'm not going to debate removal, the possibility, the costs, or if I shouldn't. That's not the point of today's video. Another comment mentioned that I can't possibly be Christian having these tattoos, and I don't believe that's true, right? I made a lot of horrible choices. I'm not denying that, and I will talk about them today. I made a lot of horrible choices before I became Christian, and I guess I would cite the book of Luke in that case, if we're talking, or I guess to paraphrase the story of the Pharisee and the tax collector, right? The Pharisee lived an earnest and godly life and did everything correctly, but was egotistical about it, perhaps. Saying, thank you, God, that I'm not like these sinful people, that I'm special. Whereas the tax collector knew he was a sinful man, knew that what he was doing was wrong, but didn't know how to escape his sin without the help of God, and, beating his chest, pleading to God, please save me, have mercy on me. It was said that he is more likely to enter heaven, that he will be forgiven first because he is genuine and is aware that he is a sinner, where the Pharisee, is living in his own world, thinks he has no sin, which I saw in a lot of those comments people that, you know, feel like they have no sin and they have the right to judge me. And if you want to, that's fine. I'm just going to pray for you, because I understand that you're going to have a much harder time if you hold on to that anger and if you hold on to that hate, especially toward someone you don't know and you've never met, especially if it's purely based on their appearance. I feel bad for you all. I'm sorry. All right, now that we've talked about the comments regarding my religion and my faith and if I am a Christian or not, I'd like to tell you a little story about my life, my upbringing, how I fell away from the Christian faith, where I started in it, how I came back to God, and where I am now and what I'm doing to continue living a Christian life and learning about Christianity, the history of it. And honestly, there's so much to learn. It takes forever, a lifetime for sure. Okay, so to start with my upbringing, I was born into a Roman Catholic family. I was a bastard, so my parents were not married. They were very young. Both of my parents were 16 at the time of my conception, and my father, he ended up in where we were living in Alberta. He ended up turning 17 before my mother did, and this created some legal issues for him. He actually spent some time in jail just for making me, and it created a lot of hatred, unfortunately, my birth, which was sad because it ripped both families apart, honestly. My father's family was advocating that I should have been aborted because they didn't want my dad's future to be thrown away for me, and my father absolutely refused. I mean, he even went to jail for the sake of me being born. And, I love him and I thank him every day for the sacrifices he's made so that I can be here. Honestly, my father is an amazing man, Christ-like. He's a carpenter. He's been a carpenter his whole life since he was 16. He's done everything he can to give me a good life, and I have nothing bad to say about that man. I wish I was more like him, honestly. As for my mother, she's also a good person, very good person. She has a very big and kind heart, but she had a lot of problems because not only did my father's family not particularly like her, after my birth, my mother's family they filed a lawsuit against my father in civil court. He had not technically done anything illegal, but they were able to push through a civil court and have him arrested and put him in jail for a year. And when they took me on, they didn't make my mom an outcast, but they didn't treat her the same in the family anymore. She had suddenly become this impure, unclean person who had committed the worst possible sin that she could not be forgiven. And I was definitely too young to see that. I did kind of understand it as I got older, and it tore apart the family. There's no other way to say it. My grandmother, the main head of religion in my mother's side of the family, died very young. She was only in her 50s. She got cancer when I was 3 or 4 years old. I don't remember clearly. Passed away, and when that happened, my mother's family scattered into pieces, and no one went to church anymore. I bounced between my mother and father's house probably every single year because they were constantly fighting to see who could have custody. But we're not going to get into that anymore. I've given you sort of the beginning of my life. I was born into the Roman Catholic faith. I was not baptized in it. My grandmother didn't think it was appropriate for me to be baptized because I was born a bastard. And that's pretty much the end of my beginnings, my upbringing. So when did I fall from the Christian faith? When did I truly start to not be Christian, I believe I was born into a Christian family and I had Christian people around me. My mom prayed for me, with me, read me bedtime stories, read the Bible to me, but I'd never been part of the community. I guess the beginning of my fall away was when I moved to live with my father. Before that, I had at least been in a Christian school. My mother had enrolled me in one that was her. She did everything she could as a single mother. She ended up having 3 kids, and she did everything she could to take care of us and protect us. She put us in a Christian school because she believed that was the best thing she could do for us. in regards to our Christianity and our faith. And I think that was a good choice. I kind of wish I had stayed in one. But when I was 10 years old, I moved to live with my father. My mother was having a hard time raising all three of us. She had health problems as well. So I went to live with my father, and my sisters went to live with their father. At this point in my life, my father had remarried. He had another son, my younger brother, Rowan, who I absolutely love. He's the coolest guy on the planet. Probably my best friend, honestly. And at that point, my father was pretty non-denominational Christian. He has not returned to the faith of any sort. He doesn't particularly like Christianity or churches or any religion. And my mother, my stepmother, who I'm just going to refer to as my mother for simplicity now, was raised in a Southern Baptist church. And for the Russian viewers, you might not know what that is. It's a Protestant faith that is very evangelical and very righteous in some beliefs and very liberal in others, so it can be confusing for people that are not familiar with it, haven't been around it, or haven't been raised in it. But if you've ever seen those churches where they have the big musical concerts and the light shows and everything going on, that's the right direction. You get the right idea of what kind of church it is. And I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with that type of worship. I don't know, I'm not the expert on Christianity, and I'm not here to say that I am. So, when I started living with my dad, there was no pressure to be in any sort of religion, but there was also no pull. No one was asking me to come to church. I had no one to really associate with that was adamantly or proclaimed to be Christian. And so, while I wasn't anything else, I was just sort of in this, purgatory of a lack of faith for a very long time until I went to university. And in university, I made some of the worst choices of my life. I think that's where we're going to delve into the stuff that you guys were all accusing me of. And unfortunately, I'm going to admit that a lot of it was true. I have done some bad things, and I have lived a bad life up until my repentance and coming to Christ. And I feel like it's fine to share those things with you. I'm not going to delve too deep into them. I don't want to advertise for those things, right? I'm not pro any of the things I'm going to talk about. I don't agree with them, and that's where I'm going to leave that. So when I entered university in Pennsylvania, this was the first time I went to university, and I ended up transferring later, but I got into witchcraft, which, that should tell you all you really need to know. It started as what I thought would be very innocent, right? I didn't necessarily even believe in it. It was just kind of fun. I had friends for the first time, people to associate with. I felt lonely, and all of a sudden I had people that wanted to be around me, and we were practicing magic and doing these funny rituals, wearing strange clothes and learning about all these runes and charms and what concoctions you can make to achieve certain things and different rituals to do certain things, how to get better grades and more money and all of that. And I don't necessarily believe all of that works, and I would never promote it or ask someone to do it or advise doing it. I did that, and eventually it did lead into what I was accused of, being a Satanist. But that didn't happen quickly, and I think that's what I want to highlight for people, that one does not become a Satanist by choice, necessarily. Not by one choice, if you understand what I mean. You don't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to worship Satan. That's a great idea. No one does that, I promise you. I've never met someone that just woke up and decided that was their faith of choice. It happened slowly and gradually, and for me it happened through practicing witchcraft and sorcery as what appeared to be very positive and innocent choices, and trying to do good by nature and help people. And eventually those same individuals I was doing that with and forming a coven or a cult with began using drugs. And at first I was very adversarial towards drugs. This was a big no for me. My father had done everything in his power to raise me right, and I had a very negative attitude towards drugs. So it was weird because I had a break in, sort of the faith from witchcraft, right? So university, I'm practicing witchcraft, and then I joined the army. After joining the army, during the army, I have no faith, really. I was asked to go to a few Christian churches, a Mormon church, and I went to these and I tried them and nothing appealed to me. And I still practiced magic on my own. I did end up meeting some other people who practiced magic, witches, warlocks, whatever you want to call them. They're a bunch of weirdos. However, in the army, I did develop my drug addiction, and that might come as a surprise to some of you. I'm sure plenty of you will have negative things to say about that, but I'll just make one quick statement about it. There are so many people in the United States military who do use, sell, and buy drugs that it shouldn't surprise you, and anyone that has been in the military knows it exists, and anyone that says it doesn't either hasn't been in the military or is pretending that it doesn't, and they don't want to admit it. That is one of the reasons I didn't want to talk about the military. I don't want to say bad things about my country. I love my brothers in arms. I'm happy to have served with them, but there are some bad things in the military that happen to people, that people do to each other, and that people do to themselves. And I did one of those things. My first drug, oddly enough, was steroids. I didn't see a problem with it, I thought it would be okay if I just used some oral steroids at first to enhance my physique. We were training so much, and I was a contract soldier, so I wanted to get promoted. I wanted to advance my career, and it's extremely common, honestly. Most of the people in my command, my leadership, my leaders knew I was doing them. I was even buying these steroids from one of my leaders. So, it's everywhere in the military, at least in the U.S. I don't know about the other countries. I've never served with another country, but the U.S. Army, steroids are plentiful. So, what started as not innocent, but what I believed to be innocent, taking some oral steroids, turned into using injectable steroids more and more until I was on a full regime of steroids, spending an absurd amount of my salary just on these steroids and medications to keep me healthy while taking them. Eventually, I could not afford that, and that's when these same people who were selling them to me introduced me to a new group of people, the people who make and sell these drugs. It started with a party, a barracks party as we call it. This is like the dormitories of the military, and some soldiers had cocaine. And, we were making jokes that it's like the best pre-workout on the planet. And at this point, I was drunk, drinking, had steroids in my body, which alters your entire psychosis and everything about your personality. So I decided to partake in the cocaine, and I ended up being addicted to cocaine, which led to many other drugs later down the road for 6-7 years. Not proud of that. Again, I don't think anyone should do those things. I don't promote them. I am glad that there are harsh laws in Russia against them. I do wish people in general would understand that no one, at least I've never met someone who just decides I'm going to start the hardest drugs on the planet. It happens slowly. Like I said, the same thing with becoming a Satanist. It's a slow, gradual pull into the darkness, and you can hate those people if you want. That's your choice. You do have freedom of will, but I would encourage you to pray for them, to reach a hand out if you can, if you're able to, and try to help them. I was very fortunate to have very good people around me eventually who did help me, and I will talk about that later. But coming back to where I was, trying cocaine, and who was this group that introduced me to the steroids, to the cocaine? Believe it or not, it was Nazis. And I don't mean that in the joking sense. Genuine Hitler-worshipping white supremacist Nazis in the U.S. Army were running one of the largest coke rings in the country. On top of that, they were also running methamphetamines in oh gosh. Sorry, this is such a weird thing to talk about. So they were running a very large drug ring from our duty station. And that was probably my first warning sign when I felt uncomfortable. and I felt an urge to run, and I didn't run. You know, I embraced it, and that was part of my psychology at the time. I believed that, you know, if I felt adversity, I should challenge it, I should rush into it. That's part of being a soldier, so you're not scared of anything. In this case, I should have run so far the other way, but I didn't. I never became a Nazi. I don't believe in white supremacy or fascism. I never got any of the crazy Nazi tattoos. I did start selling drugs for them, and doing drugs, of course. And there was a smaller group within the Nazis, if we want to call them that, the white supremacists, a smaller group of Satanists. And I don't mean this in the popular Satanists of America. I think people should be very aware there are different kinds of Satanists, just like there's different denominations of Christianity. There are non-theological ones. They're just atheists, honestly. Really weird atheists that have a strange desire to pick fights with Christians. I really don't understand these people, and again, pray for them. Hopefully they let go of whatever is causing that anger. But this was not the kind of people I met, and this was not the kind of people I joined. I joined theological Satanists, people that genuinely believed in Satan, in Lucifer, and they have, in their faith, sort of supplemented Jesus Christ with the devil. And it was very akin, very similar to witchcraft, and so it felt comfortable for me, and I slipped into it. And it became my life for a long time, for the remainder of my career in the military, which, despite what one comment said, I did actually leave the military honorably. I just didn't sign a second contract. I was done. And we'll talk about the reasons for that in the next video. But honestly, that was probably a good choice on my part. The people I was around were not helping me at all. So after I left the military, I'm still sort of deep entrenched with this Satanist group that's also a bunch of drug dealers, and quite addicted to several substances at this point. The turning point for me would have been the death of a very close friend from childhood. We had made several jokes to each other when I joined the Army. It's the first time I actually drank was with him. I had signed my contract, and these were my witchcraft friends, if you can call them friends, but I believe he was a good person deep down. And the celebration we were having before I left to join the military, they were all smoking marijuana, which of course I was against, and I didn't want to, because I believed that being a soldier in the U.S. military especially, we were going to be held to some higher standard. And we did end up drinking, though. Drinking, we made it just the most ironic and awful toast on the planet. We toasted to each other to sobriety, which is not drinking, not doing drugs, knowing that I would not be drinking anymore, that I would not be doing drugs, but he, on the other hand, would be doing all of those things. And when I came back, it was maybe 4 or 5 months after I got out of the military that he had committed quite an atrocity, and also murdered himself, committed suicide in a very violent manner. And when I heard that news, his younger brother, God, so I had texted him the night before, the day before actually, trying to get in touch with him, and I didn't even think about it, if anything was wrong. And it had turned out that morning, the day before I found out, he had actually done all of this and was running. And I guess the next morning, his brother came to see me and let me know everything that had happened. And the both of us just sat there. We really didn't believe that any of it was real. And when I came to and I realized this is real life, this just happened, I decided I wanted to be sober, that I could no longer keep doing drugs and expect to end up any differently than my friend. And so that began my road to sobriety, which I can get into more maybe in another video. I won't talk too much about sobriety here, other than it's a good thing. Please, if you're addicted to alcohol. Yes, you can be addicted to alcohol if you're addicted to smoking, cigarettes, tobacco, marijuana, anything. Seek help. Please seek help. Like, you're not alone. You're not the first one to be addicted to those things. You don't have to be ashamed of it. And yeah, there are the so-called Christians who will shame you for having done those things, but I promise you there are more Christians in this world. There are more people in this world who will help you if you genuinely want to be sober. As part of getting sober, of course, a lot of the programs in the United States are run by churches. Thank God for that, because otherwise there's paid for rehab facilities that are extremely expensive. These are really for celebrities, rich people's kids who get addicted to drugs. But for the regular people, thank God that the Christian faith exists and that there are Christian people who believe that they can go out and help other people. And I was one of those fortunate people that got help. I didn't join any church at first. I just went to an AA group and another group to help with my addiction problems. And I was given a Bible, my first Bible, which I'll show to you all. I almost said y'all. It says it's an Orthodox Bible, Orthodox study Bible, and it was a very good Bible. It's the first Bible I ever actually read. For anyone that is concerned, it is technically a Roman Catholic Bible, but it does have a few additional books that are not in their version. But the translation is similar to the Roman Catholic one. The only difference is this comes from the Septuagint as opposed to Hebrew texts, which makes it a bit more similar to the Russian Orthodox faith in my knowledge, but not quite the same. And at that point, I had not joined any church. I started reading the Bible. It took me a long time to actually read it all the way through. I kept rereading certain parts and skipping around, and I really didn't want to at first. But eventually, I managed to read the whole thing. I think what helps the most with reading the whole Bible is not trying to read it front to back, although that can be done. It's getting in sync with the calendar, especially like something like the Orthodox calendar app or any other Bible app that gives you little pieces to read each day that have something to do with history or what's going on in the faith, and that can help you a lot. So that's what I started doing. That's what got me through the entire thing. A year of reading, you'll read maybe a few sections each day, and all of a sudden you've read the whole thing. Not in order, but it's okay. So at that point I was church hopping, which we call, maybe there isn't a term for that in Russian, but it's when you go to a bunch of different churches and you don't really stay a part of one or join a community. You just keep jumping around and you don't really fit in anywhere. You don't stay anywhere long enough to actually join. It's not a good idea, I don't think. No. There are some churches that will try to suck you up as soon as you come to them. And when I realized that church hopping was bad was when I went to a Greek Orthodox church, and the priest actually he asked me to come in for an appointment to talk with him. And he had a very long and deep conversation with me about Christianity, about the faith, about who I am. And we made a lot of jokes, and he was so surprised about my past. He's like, all right, well, you need to pick one place to go, one faith to be with for at least a year before they should baptize you. Like, you need to be genuine. You need to understand the faith, the process. You can't just walk into a church, get baptized, and expect everything to be okay. And he was right. And it didn't happen right away. At first, I went back home to New Hampshire, and on my way, I met some starovaci in Pennsylvania, old Orthodox believers, and I actually tried to join them at first, and they were a little uncomfortable with me, given who I am, what I look like, and I didn't end up staying in Pennsylvania, and I didn't want to anyway, so we both sort of mutually agreed it was not a good idea to delve into the faith with them, but they did give me a really cool book, which I'll share with you guys, which is an old Orthodox prayer book. This is actually a lot of what I read at first, and how I came to understand how to pray properly, and when I did get to Russia, actually, this book was a huge help. It has everything in Church Slavonic and in English, And other than a few small differences in how the church procession occurs within the Russian Orthodox faith today, it's very similar. So when I went to the Russian Orthodox Church for the first few times, I was able to use this book. And while I didn't understand exactly what the priest was saying or what was going on, because I had this prayer manual and it has everything you could ever need, I was able to understand which part of the service we're in, what is going on. And, Gospodi pomilios, when he starts saying this 40 times, it was very clear to me, like, oh, we're right here where it says, God have mercy on me, 40 times. And so if you're thinking about converting to Orthodoxy, if you're in need of some good literature for Russian Orthodoxy that is in both English and Church Slavonic, I recommend the Old Orthodox Prayer Book. You can get it from, I think, any of the parishes in Pennsylvania, Lake Erie, or maybe some of the parishes in Alaska. I've never met them. I've never been in touch with them, so I don't know. So when did let's see. After meeting them, going home for a little bit, did relapse in New Hampshire. I started doing drugs again, which is not good. And I realized I needed more help, a lot of help, to stop. So I moved to the South, Oklahoma, started working in the oil fields as a welder, became a master pipe welder during my time there. And my grandparents, I lived with them. They are Southern Baptist, which I did not end up becoming Southern Baptist, but they helped me so much and they encouraged my faith so much. And if it were not for my grandfather and my uncle, I don't know where I would be today. Definitely not a good place. But those two men made every effort possible that a man can make to get me help, to get me sober, and to help me find God. So I just want to thank them especially. In Oklahoma, I did find a Russian Orthodox church, which was very weird. It's kind of why I picked it. It stood out to me, every other denomination's there, but when I heard Russian Orthodox, I'm like, what, in Oklahoma? Why are they here? It's so weird to me. And I knew plenty about Russian history, about Russia at this point, but not about Russian Orthodoxy, about Christianity, about the faith, about the true one church of Jesus Christ, which is Orthodoxy. And I went to this church, and they were very apprehensive about me at first. The first time I went, I wore like a full suit and a vest, and the woman who greeted me first said hello in Russian. I knew no Russian at this point. She's like, "Oh, okay, you're not Russian," and she started speaking to me in English. And she says, "Your tattoos are interesting, but at least you dressed right for church." And she helped me quite a bit, getting introduced to the faith. And I didn't get baptized in Oklahoma. I didn't end up joining the Russian Orthodox Church there, the Russian Orthodox Church abroad. They did give me some literature, which was really interesting. They wanted me to spend more time understanding it, of course, but they welcomed me to every service, which I'm thankful for. And during the entire time I lived there, I went to service with them every week. Sometimes I went to Vespers on Saturday, and most of the time I went to my Sunday service. But the book they gave me was Everyday Saints and Other Stories. I know I'm sharing a lot of books today, but I really wanted to show them to you guys because I think literature is a great way to get introduced to Christianity, especially if you're someone like me who is shy, or you don't speak the language of the church you're going to, or you have a troubled past like myself. You've done things that are kind of unspeakable, and you don't know how to talk to people about them, and you don't know how to get help reading books, especially the Bible, having a prayer book so you can pray alone if you don't really have someone to guide you through it, or reading stories like Everyday Saints and Other Stories. They can give you real-life examples of people that are just like you, I promise, and how they go from those bad moments in their past to much more positive ones in their present and future, and how they get back to Christ and to the church and to God. So that is the reason for showing you all the books. Anyway, again, if you're thinking about joining Orthodoxy, you speak English only, Everyday Saints and Other Stories. It's originally a Russian text. It was translated into English, thankfully, but it's very helpful, and I encourage anyone who's thinking about it, who's of another faith, who's just interested in stories about Christians, you should read it. It's a great story. So after Oklahoma, I did go home and visit my parents for a little while. I was still not fully part of any church, but I was pretty cemented in my choice. I wanted to be Orthodox, and the Russian language, the Russian culture in Russia was particularly interesting for me. And I think in another video I will go very deep into why I came to Russia. Not next time, we're going to talk about the army next time, not this time. But I ended up in Russia. I met my now fiance and started going to church with her family. Her mother was adamant that I get baptized as soon as possible, although the priests were like, no, we have to do things properly. And it was January of 2022 I got baptized in the Russian church. I'll show you guys a little card they gave me. It proves I was baptized, in case anyone wants to say I wasn't. But yeah, sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I feel like immediately after this video, people are gonna be like, nothing he says is true. He was not baptized. He's a Satanist, I promise you. It honestly made me laugh when I read all of that stuff, because I'm like, you know what? You're almost correct. I absolutely was those things, but I'm not now. And yeah, so baptism in January in Nizhny Novgorod, let me tell you about that. Horrible. So cold. Oh my God. I was freezing to death. I was very motivated, so I had to dunk myself 3 times. The priest didn't even want to get in the water. He's like, I'm gonna put my hand on your head and push you under, but you're going in the water on your own. And yeah, so I'm in this little pool inside of a small building. The ice, they had broken up that morning, and it was a cold, cold bath, and I spent as much time as I could in there until the priest was yelling at me, "Poydi, let's go, you need to get out of there." And after that, it was an amazing feeling, honestly. I joined the Russian church. I have started reading the Bible in Russian, or at least the Gospel, the Evangelium. It was a gift from Father John, who baptized me, and I actually chose my name because of him. His name is Ion, or John in English, and I chose my baptismal name to be Ion as well. John, because he was he didn't speak any English when we met. He actually learned some English and had an assistant who explained everything between us and to me and helped me find the faith completely. And I wanted to honor him, I guess. And it was also the day of St. John, so I didn't see any other reason to pick a different name. Another gift he gave me, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce for you guys. It's an interesting book. If you're Russian, you might know it. I tried reading it. I got to page maybe 3. The vocabulary is a bit above me still. It's actually a little bit more difficult than the Bible. But if you can see that, yeah, he gave me this book, which is, I guess, Christian philosophy, from what I understood, from the pages I was able to translate. I did get lost, which I want to read it. My Russian needs to improve. It's a good book for learning really cool vocab that I don't think most people know in Russian, so I do like that, and I'm thankful for having it. And yeah, that concludes really coming back to the faith, coming back to Jesus. I guess it's a very short story. Maybe you wanted me to go into more detail and I didn't, and I apologize if I missed something or I said something that was incorrect, or I don't know, you guys wanted more details. Shared a bunch of literature with you. I hope you liked it. They were all gifts for the most part to me, and that's why I wanted to show them to you guys. They mean a lot to me. Very sentimental about these books. They've helped me tremendously on my road to becoming sober and to becoming Christian. And yeah, so thank you all for joining me. It's my first video. Might be a little weird, might not be perfect. I'm probably not going to edit because I have no idea how to do editing. Yeah. If you have any questions or comments or things you think that would be interesting in future videos, please feel free to write them in the comments section. If you liked my story, go ahead and leave a like. If you didn't like my story, go ahead and leave a dislike. I can't stop you. And if you know anyone that's troubled, having these troubles, and maybe needs someone to talk to, feel free to share my video or to share my contact information with them. I'm happy to talk to anyone that's had struggles or just wants to share their story, honestly. if you're interested in talking to me in person or on video and doing a video with me, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to do videos with just about anyone. I think it'd be pretty interesting to talk to some people. And yeah, my next video I think is going to be about my time in the military, my time in the Army. Some people had very negative things to say about that, and were making some pretty provocative presumptions about me because I didn't want to talk about it. And so now we're going to talk about it, get into my past, what I did in the military, why I chose 5 years over 3 or 2 or 0. And yeah. Well, anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.